As a member of the House Republican leadership, Indiana Congressman Mike Pence was very visible in the GOP's successful effort to reclaim the House during the midterm elections. Now that Pence has stepped down from that post, there's speculation he may have his eye on taking back the White House.
Why am I not picked up like this all the time?
During the final push before the election earlier this month,
I told Phil my name's on the side of this bus, so obey all traffic rules.
Indiana Congressman Mike Pence spent 3 days lending support to mostly local candidates, bussing around the Hoosier state. Since 2008, Pence has been the GOP's conference chairman, the third-ranking member in the GOP House leadership. His main job prior to November 2nd's election was keeping House Republicans unified against congressional Democrats and President Obama.
After a session of Congress that saw every single House Republican vote against the stimulus bill, every single House Republican vote against their budgets, every single House Republican oppose their government takeover of health care, I believe House Republicans are back in the fight, and we're back in the fight for fiscal discipline and reform.
Pence insists the federal budget can be balanced without raising taxes, but not without cutting entitlement spending. When you talk fiscal discipline and reform, you know, Social Security, Medicare, that has to be on the table. It has been something that people haven't been willing to touch because of politics. Now they will?
Well, I think the American people know that we have to take decisive action to put our fiscal house in order, and that everything has to be on the table. But I think we can do it in a way that will both not be subject to the usual demagoguery of politics and also be broadly acceptable to the American people. And namely, I think that for any American who is in retirement or near retirement, we ought to promise them the same deal they've been promised their whole life. But for Americans under the age of 40, we can give them a better deal. We can reform Medicare and reform Social Security and give Americans a whole generation of time to be prepared for those changes.
A former radio talk show host, Pence is usually seen as a Republican who can clearly stay on message. Other times, his words have caused some trouble for the party, like on a trip to Iraq in 2007 at the height of the war, when the insurgency and the violence from it were at their worst.
I candidly was not prepared to find a marketplace where thousands and thousands of Iraqis were moving about in regular everyday life like a normal outdoor market in Indiana in the summertime.
You ever think about that and say, man, I wish I hadn't have said that?
You know, I don't spend a lot of time looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
But, you know, what I'm proud of was when John McCain and I became the first folks to go outside the wire, to go out there with our troops, to walk with the Iraqi people at the very beginning of the success of the surge. That's enormously satisfying to me. My ability to fumble the English language is not news to me.
Pence really finds his voice and his most ardent supporters when he discusses social issues.
We must demand, here and now, that the leaders of the Republican Party stand for life, traditional marriage, and religious liberty without apology.
It's appearances like this one in September at the Conservative Values Voters Summit in Washington that have many wondering if Pence might try to become the first sitting congressman elected president since James Garfield in 1880. In fact, Pence won the summit's 2012 straw poll. Are you considering a run?
I have no plans to run for president in 2012.
You haven't ruled it out?
You know, look, it's what it is to be an American. And, you know, for me and my house, we'll continue to focus on the conservative values that carried us into public service. And we'll always ask the question, where can we make the most difference for what's most important to us? And we'll let the future take care of itself.
You have to have some people who feel intensely about you, because the early primaries and caucuses are all about intense public feeling in relatively low turnouts. So it's good for Pence that the Tea Party and social values conservatives like him.
If Mike Pence is on the ballot, would you support him?
Absolutely.
What do you make of the Tea Party movement?
They're looking for a generation of leaders to stand up in Washington, D.C. And reject the big government liberalism that in many respects has characterized the recent past in both parties.
And you think Republican leadership gets it?
I think House Republicans get it. House Republicans, I believe, in the last year and a half have returned to our roots.
Are you distinguishing between Senate Republicans?
I think House Republicans get it.
Okay.
And I think that the opportunity for Republicans in the House of Representatives to provide that check on the big government liberalism of this administration is very real.
And you'd say that to Mitch McConnell as well?
House Republicans get it.
Thanks, man.
Pence easily won re-election on November 2nd as House Republicans rode the Tea Party wave back into the majority.
One nation, under God.
Then on November 3rd, Pence announced he would not seek re-election to the Republican leadership. The announcement sparked more speculation that Pence is preparing to run for the White House in 2012.
I'll keep you posted.
Okay, that's what you told me in Washington. Same answer.
Next up in our 12 in 2012 series, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Thursday,